Hi, I'm Phil Lamar, voice of Green Lantern in Justice League, and you're listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cinema Geeks. I am one of your hosts, Optimus Solo, and joining me today, ladies first, HardCandiMandi.
I know you from this podcast thing.
Is that all you know me from?
I was just thinking about the moment in Thor when he sees Hulk.
You just want to talk about Thor still.
I'm stuck on it right now.
She was asking me questions.
I thought it was a callback to the beginning of Justice League, so there you go.
She was asking me questions about the end credit scenes, and she was talking about freaking Jeff Goldblum's character. I'm like, that's the wrong movie.
So confused, guys. Back-to-back weeks of comic book movies.
We threw her off talking about Thor, and then we rewatched Guardians 2, and then she watched Justice League. She has no idea which superhero is in which movie. Which one's Marvel, which one's DC. She's lost.
I got no clue, but it's great. It's so great.
And of course, as you heard, also with us is MovieRevolt Dan. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
It's not going too shabby here. No Fridley sent today. He is off fighting real world battles, I guess, and leaving us to carry the mantle, I guess, as we're going today to review another movie. Yeah, that's right. 2 episodes in a row where we review films in theater. So we last talked about Thor Ragnarok, and now we're going to talk a little bit about Justice League. So the first half, or probably the first 2/3 of this episode, will be giving you our take on Justice League. And then after the break, we're going to come back and give you our initial reactions and thoughts about the other side of the comic book war, I guess, the Marvel side. And we're going to talk about the newest trailer that just dropped for Avengers Infinity War. I think I got that title right. So that'll be coming up after the break. But first, let's jump right into it, and let's talk a little Justice League. First off, get your guys' initial excitement level, anticipation going into this film. Obviously, DC has had a little bit of a different track record compared to Marvel, not necessarily hitting everyone out of the park early on. We had a pretty polarizing film in Man of Steel. A lot of people really did not like that film, and some people really did gravitate towards it. Batman vs. Superman, obviously universally not liked by most.
Loved by Amanda.
By most, outside of our own very passionate HardCandiMandi. And then Suicide Squad tanked according to most people. And then, of course, Wonder Woman kind of rebounded a little bit as far as the universal acclaim that it got, and now we get Justice League. So kind of seeing how they're going to do as they do this team-up film without doing individual films, kind of where they diverted the path from the Marvel course, I guess. So, Dan, all of the kind of convoluted DC lead-up to this and the mixed bag of films that we got leading up to this, what were you thinking going into Justice League, and what was your initial reaction coming out?
I was reluctantly anticipating it, if that makes sense. like I was hoping it could be good. I thought there was some potential, but I was not necessarily thinking that potential would be realized. And there's a lot of baggage with the movie going into it. Mostly I was just like, I wanted to come out so we can stop talking about Batman v Superman, because I feel like that's a movie we've been talking about for 50 years now. So just stop. So I was hoping that it would be good, or it'd be an improvement, and I thought it would be an improvement. And walking out of it, I thought it was. I do think it's a far less interesting movie than Batman v Superman, but a better one, if that makes sense. It takes less risks, but also has less issues. There's a lot of problems with it. It's not a perfect film. There's areas that I can improve upon, but I thought the parts were better than the sum, and it really, I think, ended up being a better movie due to the chemistry and the quality of the characters and the actors that were portraying them, where kind of everything else surrounding them was really a pretty big mess for the most part. So considering it what it could be, knowing that you're introducing all these characters for the first time, it actually was a much better movie than I expected. So I enjoyed it, but I think objectively there's still a lot of problems with it.
Did Matt leave on purpose so he wouldn't have to record this episode?
He probably didn't want to further strain his relationship with you when it comes to Marvel and DC reactions.
No matter what, me and Matt are still bros. We're still cool.
So, Amanda, you have been a fan of DC from the get-go. You like these characters. You're willing to just have fun and not maybe pick apart some of the plots and the stories and whatnot. So were you able to continue with this, or was this a disappointment for you? This is the big team-up film that a lot of people have been waiting for a long time on the DC side. What did you think?
I was fucking pumped for this movie, all right? Ever since middle school, when I had a different Superman shirt for every day of the week, I was ready for this. Okay, I feel like that's as long as this has been talked about being made, and it finally freaking happened. My excitement level was taps going into this. I don't think I was disappointed really at all. I was a little worried, with all the backlash that came with Batman versus Superman, that this was just gonna be shit because they were so beat down that, it was gonna show in their work. But I really liked it. I think the team up was great, and I liked the mashup. It was super. It meshed so well, but then they had their individual personalities that did shine through, and it was a good time, I'd say, for initial thoughts.
Dan, one more question before I kind of give my initial thoughts that I was wondering about. Justice League, that is the Avengers film for DC. Like, that's the equivalent here. And obviously Justice League has had some properties, like animated properties, cartoons, etc., TV shows that have been successful or pretty praised by most people. And this is, again, something that, you say, Batman vs. Superman has been talked about for a long time, but the idea of Justice League and there being a film like that has obviously also been an idea for a long time. Do you feel like over the last 3 or 4 years, the kind of the clout or the idea of a Justice League film has kind of lost some of the glitz and glam that it might have had it come out, without some of these films prior to it?
Yeah, I think, like I said, going into it, there's just so much baggage, and it's one thing to see a universe come together that you were able to buy into at the beginning, but if you're not able to do that, it maybe lessens it a little bit. I think it also lessens it a little bit where you had a bunch of these characters already coming together in a small bit, where you had Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman in Batman v Superman. So I don't know if that makes the whole team coming together a little anticlimactic, and the fact that when you're just really adding Cyborg, Flash, and Aquaman, does it make it that much more like did you kind of peak out with that moment in Batman v Superman? Like I don't know. So I do think, and we'll get to it. Like, this should be huge. This should be exciting, and seeing all these characters come together. And I felt like that spectacle that it could have been, it ended up not being. And I don't know if it's because of the build-up wasn't there, or it's just the film itself wasn't effective in making it happen.
Yeah, I've been listening to different people's takes on the movie, as far as podcasts, blogs, reviews, etc. And I feel like instead of this being like this, and I know it's unfair to just always go back to Avengers, but the same type of hype that we had going into Avengers, and are they honestly going to be able to pull this off? This team up, are they going to be able to do it and give each character the kind of conversations that were happening leading up to Avengers are not the conversations that were happening leading up to Justice League. And I feel like coming out of it, it was more people reacting in a positive way because it wasn't the dumpster fire that was Suicide Squad, or that many people thought Batman versus Superman. And it's like, it's just, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. Instead of, it was this groundbreaking, earth-shattering, phenomenal time at the theater is what I kind of got. And that's kind of what my reception of it was for the most part as well. It's like, I enjoyed that it wasn't as bad as some of those other films, and I enjoyed some of the characters and some of the tone shifts that we got kind of going away from Batman vs. Superman, a little bit more lightheartedness, a little bit more fun. So I enjoyed that aspect, but it still held all of the same type of story problems, plot problems, etc. So to me, it's hard to think of this movie without still being somewhat of a letdown. It's like not a letdown compared to some of these past movies, but it's a letdown compared to what Justice League should have been, I guess is what my initial take was. And that's coming from, not necessarily the biggest comic book fan or knowledgeable person in the world. And I still feel like I was let down by something that could have been just something on a much higher level that we got. Like, if you would have said early, like 5 years ago, that there was going to be a Justice League movie, and it wasn't going to be in the top 5 for box office, that it was not going to be as well received as a Thor film or a Wonder Woman film. Like, there's no way anybody believes that. And yet that's what we're facing with. So I guess let's break down a little bit more and get into this. Amanda, obviously we have some new characters that are appearing, quote-unquote new, even though, like Dan said, we saw sneaks and little bits of them in other films. So out of the new cast with The Flash, Cyborg, and Aquaman specifically, did one work more than the other for you? Did you enjoy all of them, or how did you feel about those members of the Justice League?
I think they all were pretty dope. Their look, their personalities, the way their powers and stuff work. I thought they were all pretty dope, dude. But I think the Flash's reactions to things was hilarious constantly, and the stuff between like him and Superman was great. So I think maybe the Flash stuck out for me for comedy a little bit more. Jason Momoa, definitely super dope as Aquaman. I think he is the most badass Aquaman I've ever seen. I always thought Aquaman was kind of a joke, but now he's definitely solidified himself as a badass character. And I think we saw like 0.3 seconds of a cool ass underwater fight, which was awesome.
Dan, what do you think? Did Flash work for you from a comedic standpoint? Was Aquaman badass, as Amanda calls him, or what do you think of these new guys?
I thought the characters overall were pretty effective. Cyborg was okay. Like, it's a tough character to play because it's like, you know, it's a character where you can't really show that much emotion based upon like who he is. At the same time, it's basically this walking like Deus Ex Machina of basically whatever fits the situation at the same time. But he worked fine enough. He was functional in the plot. At least he had a purpose. I liked Ezra Miller as the Flash. I thought it was smart because obviously, you know, people know the Flash TV show, and it went a different route with the character, and he works as that. You know, he's basically Spider-Man, right? The wide-eyed kid coming, you know, that's kind of new and awing over everything he's enjoying. He's like the fanboy of everyone, and not maybe the Flash character that I know many people want, but I thought it worked well enough. Not all of his jokes worked, not all the jokes worked in general. I did like Aquaman. I thought we could get more of him. Like I felt like his. I feel like his movie that is eventually going to happen. I have a thought that it's going to like take place in between this movie or in somewhere, because I feel like there's a lot of changes to him that I don't know. Like there's a lot of opportunity there for growth in a way. So I thought Momoa looked great. Like he had some good moments and some fun time, and I like his portrayal, and the chemistry in the cast overall was pretty good. So I thought the characters in general looked good. The only person I actually had a huge issue with was actually Ben Affleck as Batman, who I loved in Batman v Superman. But in this, I don't know, like he just didn't have it. He didn't seem comfortable in the role, like physically, or I don't know, like it seemed like a different character in many moments, and like this redemption arc he was going through, I didn't think was as effective as it needed to be. But
yeah, I think that's an interesting take, and I'll real quick touch on the other ones, and I'll come right back to that Batman comment because I have something to say about that. But for me, I think you're right with Cyborg. I think that's a hard character to do because it just, for me, comes across so flat and so like, I don't know, I'm indifferent to the character overall. He didn't excite me at all. He came across to me like, you mentioned the Flash TV series, and he was like all the different people that they encountered in that TV series who were just discovering a power but were resistant to it, and they had to try to work with those characters and try to convince them that, you know, they should be a part of the team or something like that. It seemed very generic to me for him. I think the performance was fine. I think he did what he could with what he had to work with, but I think it's a hard character to pull off. I think you're right with that. I do think that the Flash I think he's good as the Flash. I think it's hard to reconcile the fact that there's a Flash that's really good at the Flash on the TV show, and that this is going on at the same time, so to speak. And it's like, oh, is there really no way we could have got him? But that's nothing against the performance there, because I think the performance is fine. I do think the Flash character, though, presents a lot of problems when it comes to kind of checking over the plot and the story and making sure everything makes sense that involves the Flash. because it seems like there were some things that were missed or handled inappropriately when you have somebody that has the powers that he does.
Like what? What do you mean? I don't get that.
There's just moments that I feel like it doesn't, like, you think of what the Flash should be is a character very similar to like what we get when you get like Quicksilver in the X-Men films or the Avenger films.
Why?
It's someone that has a specific power that you can't ignore, and there's just times where he shouldn't be where he is, or his speed should come into play. Like that scene to me is completely bizarre, where everybody else is gone and he's still standing there. Like that didn't work as a comedy thing for me. That worked as something that was not what I would expect. You know what I mean? Like that was hard to reconcile, and I just think there was other things throughout the film where it's like, is he just not familiar with his powers yet? Like at what point is he in his kind of growth as that character? Did he just kind of learn about it, or has he known about this stuff for a while? I wasn't quite sure how that was all.
He's not like full on into his. He doesn't have his shit together yet. Like towards the end is when he gets his shit together. He gets his life on track.
I just think if you were to watch it again with a real close eye on stuff that was involving his scenes and some of this time, it wouldn't make sense.
I think you're being real picky about that.
No, I think
there's like 2 instances, maybe 1 instance.
I need to rewatch it. I only watched it once, so I'll watch it and I'll come up with a list for you. But for me, I just think it's problematic. It's problematic.
I don't know if I can't really think of, he basically was, he doing crowd control for much of the film, or I don't know. I don't know if I felt like they didn't utilize this. It's tough because you have a dude who is fast as light, but I liked how we did see as an experience, especially when the certain sequence with Superman, and like how he basically, what happens when he just has speed and he can't rely on it, and like the shock look on his face, like in that moment. So I don't know. I don't know if I felt like.
I'm not saying there's necessarily problems. I'm just saying I don't think he was a wow character for me like I was expecting. I guess I keep going back to Quicksilver and X-Men. Like that was something that was like, this is what he can do. And I know it would be stupid if they did the same exact thing and everyone would yell at him, oh, you just copied him, and had like a slow motion sequence or something like that. But I'm just saying something that would have kind of put him a little bit more of a pizzazz with his power.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't, minus that one moment, there wasn't a sequence with him or any of the characters where you felt like each character got a major action beat or moment. That he had some funny parts and a good relationship with like Batman that I thought they could expand upon much further than they did. But action-wise, like, there wasn't much. I also thought the way he ran looked ridiculous. It looked like it was swimming, or like it just. I know it's supposed to be looking effortless, but it I don't know. It just looked kind of awkward, but
yeah, I agree with that too. I was watching that, like, what are they supposed to be doing with this form of running that he's doing? But Aquaman, I agree with you guys. Like, I think Jason Momoa is the perfect person to play that. I love that they've made him into something that's not the typical, just joke of a character. They made him a badass. I agree with Amanda on that. I can't help but think of him and think of Batista in Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, they somehow took this just mammoth guy and created a real cool character with him and gave him. He seems to have some actually pretty decent comedic timing and some sense of who he is and how he's playing that role. So I do look forward to seeing that. I want to get back, though, to, Dan, what you were saying about Batman, because I think you could almost say the similar things, well, I guess in a different way, but similar things to Superman and Batman. I think those are the characters we've seen the most of, obviously, in these DC properties, and it seems like they're both completely different characters in this film. One for the better, and I think one for the worse. I think in Batman's case, it's almost for the worse, because I liked him better when he was in Batman vs. Superman and stuff like that, because it felt like he was more into it. And I don't know what the problem was here, but I just felt like something was missing. Whereas Superman, it seems like the tonal shifts that have gone on from that original film, where we stopped trying to be just completely, dark and different stuff like that, and they're trying to lighten it up and do it. And almost it was like we got funny Superman this time, or lighthearted Superman, and I liked that version way better than I've liked in Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, or anything that I've seen this particular version of Superman show up. Did you see a difference in Superman as well, or is it just more Batman kind of being a lesser of an effective character?
I thought he was, from the moment he first appeared on screen, felt like he was a different Superman. It felt like Superman for the first time, and Henry Cavill had some performance of a personality in this. Like they embraced the corniness of that character. He embraced his kind of naivete in a way. They didn't try to make him brooding or kind of this deconstruction of Superman. They made him Superman. Does it make sense with everything that came before? Not really. But I thought it was the best portrayal of that character that they've had. I understood it when it came to Man of Steel, because he's learning to become Superman. But when he's supposed to be Superman in BVS, it didn't feel that way. But if this same character showed up previously, it would make his death, I think, mean more, because you would understand the loss of hope that the world felt. I think you would, in a way, feel that way too. So I thought it was. I thought the way they handled Superman was really effective in this.
Amanda, what do you think about the handling of Batman and Superman and kind of their performances and portrayals? Did they feel like the exact same characters you'd seen in previous movies, or did you kind of notice some differences?
I felt like Batman was a little bit more in the background of this one. But that's fair. I mean, we already got a ton of him in Batman vs. Superman. I think it was cool seeing a different side of Superman come out in this. So when he's still kind of when they bring him, back and he's still all discombobulated or whatnot, I think it was cool seeing his angry face and seeing what he could do if he wasn't just trying to help people.
And hopefully, if people have seen the film already, I guess we're somewhat spoiling the fact that Superman came back, but I don't think that's too much of something that was unexpected, so I apologize if we threw anybody off with that reveal, I guess. Dan, one thing, though, that leads me to kind of talk about a little bit and kind of want to get your guys' take. Obviously, this had somewhat of a tumultuous production here with what happened to Zack Snyder and his personal life and him needing to step down, and obviously we had Joss Whedon come in. So I'm wondering, do you attribute some of these lightheartedness or some of these different kind of takes on the character or some of these little tone shifts? Because they said that there was going to be no tonal shifts. You weren't going to be able to know anything as far as Joss Whedon taking over, and that it was going to be very fluid, and I don't know if I could buy that. But do you attribute some of that to Joss Whedon, or because my thought in the back of my head is he comes in and you already have the basic story. He's not going to be able to do too much to divert from that. You already have the basic structure of the story. You already have a lot of the stuff shot, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So did he just see something and say, the best I can do is just to work with the delivery and the take of some of these characters and try to make it more lighthearted and try to add some humor or try to add some just fun entertainment value to a story that I'm not going to be able to fix? Or am I giving him too much credit and Zack Snyder not enough?
I don't know. I feel like sometimes when it comes to that, and I've read a lot too regarding that was a Zack Snyder moment, that was a Joss Whedon moment, and I don't know for sure, honestly, because I think there's certain times where it did feel like the dialogue or the joke that was being made felt like a moment that's probably not the way Zack Snyder would do it, and similar to where there were sequences in which we're certainly tying back to what came before, where certainly was probably Zack Snyder's personal touch that was shown. I didn't notice that a lot per se, and I knowing that going into this, there was a big push to make it lighter and funnier or what have you, or having more jokes, that I do wonder if there are some jokes where people are thinking that's a Joss Whedon joke. It was just actually Zack Snyder just going with the directions that he was given. So I didn't think it was ever super jarring per se. It didn't. If I didn't know this was a movie directed by two directors, I went into it blind. I don't think I'd ever feel that way going into it. But there are moments where it does. You feel like you see Joss Whedon-ness and his dialogue kind of come to play, especially when it comes to some of the pop culture references and things like that. But I didn't think it was super noticeable.
No, I don't think so either. It's just hard to kind of watch something and say, when you don't know who's responsible for what. And not that you need to place credit or blame on anybody else. I don't think necessarily. I think the only moment that I saw that seemed for me that it was somewhat right out of a Marvel movie from a comedic standpoint was the lasso of truth moment with Aquaman. I felt like that was something I would have seen in every single Marvel film, something of that nature that kind of hit perfectly from a humor standpoint. But Amanda, one thing we have not talked about yet is the villain in this film. So let's get into that a little bit. Obviously, when we talk about superhero films, a lot of people like to kind of bash or heavily critique the villains, and a lot of times they haven't been too nice to them. What do you think we had here with Steppenwolf? Was that a worthy villain in your mind, or what did you think?
Yeah, I think he was kind of like a little bitch, honestly, because, I mean, they show how he was defeated initially. That's why he was gone. And then we see what happens to him in this one. I feel like he didn't do much of the dirty work. He just showed up after all the shit was done and then grabbed what he was, like, gonna get and say, ah, ha, ha, I got it, you guys. But then his little Valkyrie-looking things, the things that could smell fear or whatever, I think those were scary and effective. And is Batman psychic? Because he dreamed about those. And then Batman vs. Superman.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you don't remember that desert scene where he's like...
I try to forget everything about Batman vs. Superman.
Well, that's the whole thing. If it's supposed to be a flash forward, yeah.
No, it's... I don't know. It was like a dream sequence, so...
Yeah. Those are supposed to be... Those are the same things as the parademons, so it's... Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't pick up on that. Dan, what was your take on Steppenwolf? Is it something that was very similar to the villain we got, obviously, in Wonder Woman? Is there a little bit too much CGI going on there, or what did you feel like his effectiveness was as a character?
Minimal. He was easily like the worst part of it, and like in a way, it's like I was wondering like if he didn't exist, would it really affect the film? Like if it was legitimately just the parademons. You probably would have you would have given yourself more time and space to devote to these characters, so I thought he was pretty useless from start to finish. Wasn't very interesting. Like it's one thing to have a bad villain and having one dimensional. Okay, fine, but at least make him look interesting or have a fun performance, and it didn't have any of that. Character design wise, he was super flat. So it legitimately like. He wasn't. My thing is like he wasn't super awful. He was just super forgettable. So
Amanda, what did you think of the character design and the look of him?
I don't think he was intimidating looking at all. I don't think that his look was effective. I think the CG wasn't done well. All the other CG I thought was really great though.
Yeah, I think for some reason, it seemed like it was not somebody didn't go over with a fine tooth with his character and the CGI rendering. I don't know what happened there, but I think my biggest problem with him is more about some of the writing behind his character, like the motives and what he's trying to do. I do not understand these mother boxes. They're basically hidden by a variety of different people. Obviously, you know, Aquaman descendants have a part of that. Wonder Woman's, the Atlanteans, the Themyscirians. I'm going to get all this wrong.
The Amazons.
Yeah, so they all hide part of this, and it's supposed to be hidden so that no one will ever be able to find them. And he can basically just sense where they're all at. Like I didn't understand that part of it all, but maybe I'm not supposed to be understanding the plot of this. But it just seemed like these are all hidden in these super secret ways so that nobody ever finds them, and all he has to do is like think about it, and he's like, oh, I know where this is, I know where that is, and I know where that is. I'm going to do these portal things, go to each one of them and grab them, and we're going to move along the plot. Did I miss something? Am I supposed to be understanding something different that I didn't get on that first watch? Did you guys pick up on?
I don't know if it's supposed to be some sort of energy signature that they're able to like key in on, because that's why they went after Cyborg. He was coming from the mother box, and the parademons were able to like recognize him. So I don't know if that's what it was. Like there's a certain energy per se, but that was what I assumed going in. I thought there was some sort of mention to it, but it wasn't very specific.
Okay, because I was completely lost on. I was like, this seemed like it was way too easy for him to find these, and then having a rather quick pace. So I was a little bit thrown off on that. Other story things that you guys wanted to bring up? Anything that you liked that they did plot wise, or things that you were confused about, or any general notes on the movie, Amanda?
Why did they keep the ship? Is it Zod's ship that had all the amniotic fluid in it? They saw what came out of that thing. Why did they save it? Why did they burn that fluid, get rid of it, flush it, whatever, and then junk the ship? They saved it. They saw what could happen, and they saved it. Who allowed that? Who said this is okay?
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. Any other notes that you had?
The Amazons were even more badass in this, I'd say. So I like that we got some more chick badassery from the Amazons.
Absolutely. Dan, other things that you liked, disliked about the film, story, plot? We obviously got to see a little bit more of the Amazons, a little bit more of Atlantis, and kind of a brief snippet of that. What did you like and dislike about those things?
I thought the best action sequence was probably the Amazon sequence. I think that was effectively done. Just like, you have these like Amazons killing one another, and like the use of the mother box and how that played into it. I wish there was more of that. I felt the finale itself was just, I don't know, it looked bad, and it just, like, it had a couple moments here and there, but it was just also, like, legitimately, it was basically Superman separating a box. Like, that was, like, that's where it all came down to. And it wasn't really, like, okay, I guess, fine, I mean, I don't know. I thought there was some, like, I like the moment where you see Superman, like Flash is saving this one person, and then you see Superman with an entire building of people and stuff like that. So it had its spots that added to it. But like I was also kind of like impressed with like how much they got done in 2 hours. Like, you're introducing some major characters and how they kind of hinted at who those characters were and their history relatively quickly. I thought that was done well. Like, you got struck by lightning, and so they were giving people enough, I think, that never heard of these characters, but not too much. So that did kind of impress me, because this movie, like, it could have been so much worse than it is, considering like you're introducing some major characters with no backstory, and they're just kind of showing up. But I thought they could add in they were able to add in action without it feeling super exposition-y, if that's a word. But yeah.
I like that one. Yeah, I don't think I had anything else too much on the stuff. I think the story and the plot has some weaknesses there, but I think the characters are good enough to kind of get past that. Was anybody else thrown off by trying to come to terms with J.K. Simmons not being J. Jonah Jameson in a comic book film? Anybody else like his character?
It was so brief. I mean, didn't get much from him, but yeah, he was good.
Yeah,
I hope we get more. But yeah, considering it's a much different personality, I didn't,
Right, and Lois Lane still bugs me. I like the actress, and I think she performs it fine, but I can't stand how her character has been written in any of these films. How is she always where she needs to be? It's just, she's always there, and I don't feel like she ever adds too much. I mean, little brief moments here and there, but I don't know. I think that her character has been generally mishandled through these films so far.
The relationship with her and Superman is just, it's not what the movie thinks it is, and it's like, it needs it to be. They just don't have really any chemistry. So, so I think that doesn't help things.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think overall a positive step in the right direction. At least I think, like Dan said, it's not nearly as bad as it could have been. I think they did the characters justice. I think they have people now excited for more Aquaman and stuff like that. I think people were already excited based on the Wonder Woman film to see more of her. And I guess the verdict's out on what's going to happen with Batman in the future. That we'll talk about the future here in a little bit. But before that, just any other final thoughts, and what kind of grade would you give Justice League before we get into a little bit of the after credits talk and maybe the future of what's coming down the pike? Dan, what kind of grade would you give Justice League?
Man, I would probably give it 6.5, 7, 6.5, 7%. Yeah, around that. That could go up or down, I think, a lot based upon rewatch. And I'm kind of excited for what's coming next. I feel a little bit better. I think there's things they can kind of take and improve upon going forward. I don't know. I'm worried because I don't know if they're going to just revamp everything, because it didn't do well, and there's some singers at the end that I don't want to spoil, and I'm excited what that means, but I hope it's not one of those things where, we get the Green Lantern singer and then that's never talked about again. So
yeah, that'd be interesting. Amanda, before you give your thoughts here, what's your final take on Justice League, and what kind of grade do you give it, and how does it stack up to some of the other DC films we've gotten?
As far as other DC films goes, I think it's in the upper echelon there, and definitely excited for more. I'll give it a 7 too.
Okay. I'm right in that same camp. I was floating somewhere in the 6-7 range. I think it's better than I anticipated, so I was happy with that, and I like you guys. I'd like to see a little bit more about it. Let's get into some end credit scenes here, so if you haven't seen that and you want to avoid that, skip ahead about 5 or 10 minutes. But obviously we got a couple end credit scenes. How did those work for you? What did you like and dislike, Amanda?
I think that the race between Superman and Flash was super cute. I enjoyed that quite a bit, and I think that the Deathstroke scene was intriguing.
So you're a fan of both of them?
Yes, but I think that's probably stemming from my love for the TV show. So we'll see how it holds up.
And it's striking how close those two characters look to each other, the TV version and the film version of Deathstroke.
I thought it was the dude.
I was like, we were both having the conversation. If they can get the same Deathstroke, why can't they get the same Flash? But it's not the same Deathstroke. It's Joe, and I'm not going to try to say his last name. Dan, what did you think of the two end credit scenes?
I liked them. I thought it was, the Flash Superman thing was cool to see. It was an unexpected little element that I thought, was a nice little surprise. The final one, interested in what it means, like where it can go. I don't know. After seeing, it was like I could do without Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor for a while, and then oh, there he is. So I'm like, at least he's bald, I guess. I don't know. But
what about just the idea that maybe we'll get some of these iconic villains all together, and something that DC might have an easier chance of doing something like that than Marvel would, even the whole League of Villains, I forget what the actual name is from the comic books, but if they were to put that together, is that something you would be intrigued to see, Dan?
Yeah, I think so. Again, I think it would mean more if we saw them before they just ended up in this other movie, but there are also a lot of stuff from the Dark Side too. So is that something that's going to be in a different movie? Is that what's going to be the next Justice League, and Dark Side's in Justice League 3 or 4? I don't know. So it's I'm interested. Like I said, though, my only concern is if they scrap all those plans and do something completely different. But
yeah, we'll have to definitely wait and see what the plans are for that. If you haven't been keeping track, as far as the box office goes, Justice League had obviously a pretty high budget, a $300 million budget according to internet sources, and it has made that worldwide, but domestic, not the juggernaut that we thought it might be. Right now it's ranking 11 on the year at $178 million, so that's below Logan, below Thor, below Spider-Man, below Guardians of the Galaxy, and below Wonder Woman. So is there a chance that Justice League comes in last at the box office for all the comic book films this year, Dan? And what would that... can we even wrap our heads around the thought of that?
Well, when we did our box office projection, I put Batman's Lego Batman movie making more money than it, because I thought that'd be kind of just ironic. So I can wrap my head around that, but it's just crazy because it's it's making less than so many. I never thought Thor would outdo a movie with both Batman and Superman in it. That's pretty mind-boggling.
Yeah, and from a Rotten Tomatoes point of view, also not faring too well there. It currently has a 41% on Rotten Tomatoes, so it could be definitely worse, but it could be better. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see the reaction. I think one thing that DC has done wrong over the years is react too much to what they think everybody wants or thinks everybody needs, instead of just kind of staying on a strict path and kind of trusting what they're doing. So I don't know, will we get another thing where all of a sudden they try to redo this, redo that, cast different people, or just scratch the whole thing and start over? I think that would be unfortunate, because I think they have the right people cast in a lot of these roles, and I think the characters themselves are interesting. I think it just takes a solid story behind them, and that's what we've kind of been lacking so far, or a solid villain that they haven't seemed to quite get right so far. Even when you had something like Suicide Squad, you kind of chose the wrong villain out of your options there, at least as far as I was concerned. So interesting take there. I did appreciate seeing Deathstroke. I think they got the character design well. I think he looks cool. I think it's another good casting of that character. So we will have to wait and see, and you guys will have to let us know what you guys thought of Justice League and the future of DC. Are you excited for what's coming down the pike? This was originally going to be 2 films. They were going to have Justice League Part 1 and the Justice League Part 2. I don't know if they were 2 different stories, or if they just thought that this was going to take 2 movies to tell. I'm not quite up on the inside baseball with that type of stuff, so I'll have to see what's coming down the road for that. Amanda, Are you excited for more DC?
Yes, sir.
Excited for your Aquaman movie?
Yeah.
What about seeing some DC villains team up in the same way?
I think they have some super cool villains, and like I said, it was stupid to choose the villain that they did for Suicide Squad when they could have brought out some baddies. You know what I mean? So, well, it's gonna be more fun, I'd say.
Okay. Well, let us know what your thoughts are, and we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, we're gonna shift. Let's go away from DC. Let's talk a little bit of Marvel after the break and give you our reactions to the latest trailer for the Infinity War. After this.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
On the Simplistic Reviews podcast, we talk movies. We talk TV. We talk.
Hello, Julie, what the heck are you doing?
Trying to make our spots sound more exciting by adding explosions.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could have got the point across with sound effects, not the real thing.
Download the show on iTunes or at simplisticreviews.blogspot.com.
I'm sure your insurance company will cover that.
No, they won't.
No, they probably won't.
Hello, everyone. This is JD from the In Session Film Podcast. Each week, we review
the latest from Hollywood, California.
Well, yes, Brendan. We also
give top 3 lists.
Okay, yeah. Thanks again, Brendan. Additionally, you can hear us
talk other movie news, trailers, varying movie series, or other interesting film-related topics, and even rants and raves of the week.
On top of our main show, every Friday,
you can also hear our extra film podcasts.
You can listen to the In Session Film Podcast on
iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or at InSessionFilm.com. Listen to the In Session Film Podcast every Monday and Friday. Subscribe today and hear me verbally beat JD like a Cherokee drum.
No. That's not how this works, sir.
All right, thanks for sticking with us. As we said before the break, we're going to switch to Marvel now. Obviously, a huge trailer that dropped and had a lot of people reacting in a lot of different ways. I haven't heard what you guys think yet on either of these, so this is kind of going in a little bit blind. Let's start with you, Dan. What did you think of the trailer for Avengers Infinity War?
Well, I hated it. No. No, I greatly enjoyed it, and it's I guess let me fanboy a little bit, but it's just like it's kind of insane when you kind of look back and realize like this story has legitimately been building for a decade, which is crazy because like I can't think of like franchises that would last that long. 19 movies, 20 movies, all these different characters, and it felt like everything was just falling in the piece. Like it was just this puzzle that was kind of being put together, and suddenly when you see it, like you take a step back and look at it, you're like, oh, that's what it's supposed to look like. And I definitely think it looks like that. It looks like it's gonna be great. This seems like there's some kind of 3 major kind of story beats that's going to have, like the Wakanda story, the New York story, and maybe the space one. I have a strong feeling a lot of the Avengers won't really be coming together to the very end. But I thought it was everything I wanted it to be and more. So,
Amanda, your initial take on the trailer?
I dug it. I dug the look. I dug the fact that we're going to be getting some pretty funny matchups like Thor and Drax. Can you imagine? There's got to be some moments between Thor and Drax. Even like Star-Lord and Thor too. I think that'd be pretty funny. And I also can't wait to see like rugged Cap, like unshaven Cap. And I'm really interested in the Wakanda story stuff too. So when Black Panther comes out, I think I'm going to be even more intrigued to see more of the Wakandans.
Yeah, definitely stepping up to have Black Panther kind of be the springboard into this film and kind of even ramp excitement up more by showing us a little bit more of that world. I think you're right, Dan, with the kind of the 3 prongs of the story that we might get and then eventually coming together. I think it's interesting too, we've seen team ups in this Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we've seen different people appear in different people's movies. We have never seen any of the Guardians appear in any of the other films so far, so that will be definitely something interesting. I really dug the trailer, and I was very impressed with a lot of things. Obviously, the biggest look we've gotten at Thanos so far, a new look for Spider-Man with his costume. That was not the same costume that we've seen before for Spider-Man, correct?
I think it was his upgraded one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A look at the Infinity Gauntlet and kind of how that's going in. My question for you guys is, the big question going into the first Avengers film was, are they going to be able to put all these people together? Are they going to be able to share screen time? Are they going to be able to do it so everybody has their moment and make it feel like it's still a cohesive story? And that was when we were dealing with like a half a dozen people. Like, this is a ton of people. It's like not just the people that they had for the Avengers, because all of them are still around. It's like add 2 to 3 times more characters on top of that. I mean, just adding the people from Guardians is a whole nother Avengers group, as far as numbers wise. And then you have all the people that have come about with Doctor Strange and Black Panther and Spider-Man now and all these other folks. Dan, are we at all worried about, they've proven us that they do everything right, and they haven't taken too many missteps or anything like that, and every time we've ever doubted them, they've proved us wrong. Is this another situation where we should just trust that they know how to do all this together?
I think so. I think, too, it's like I said, I think it'll work because we won't see a lot of them together, per se. And also, a lot of them have had their films already. They've had their growth. So there isn't really much on a basic character standpoint that really needs to be driven across in a way, because it's not like this is basically going to be about a story of survival and coming together. And I think the hard part is going to be like, how do you manage all these different pieces, get everyone their point of view across, like, and make sure that each piece makes sense along the same lines of, I think goal number 1 is going to make Thanos feel like this threat that he needs to be. And if they can do that, I think everything else can kind of fall into line. So I think that's going to be the biggest key in making sure they get that accomplished, because if he's, Steppenwolf, for example, this could make the movie, not at all what you want it to be.
Amanda, are you thinking the similar lines, that you trust that they're going to be able to balance all of these different characters and actors and give them each what they need, and we've already known enough about them that we don't need to get too much in depth?
There's going to be some points where I'm going to say I wanted more of this collaboration. I wanted more of these characters together. I don't feel like I got enough of, this grouping or this matchup or enough crossovers between, the groups. I don't think that there's going to be a way for us to be completely satisfied.
Okay. What about, he mentioned Thanos, and obviously we got to see a better look and a closer-up look of him, and got to hear Josh Brolin's voice a lot more. And he was talking about, if Thanos works or not as a villain. What did you think about just his look? Do you buy into the character design? Do you think he looks like an intimidating villain, or what's your hopes for him?
Yeah, I think he looks pretty good as far as the CG goes. I think that he can be intimidating. If his movements are good, I think that's what's going to, kind of deter my... or swing how I feel about him either way, because we didn't get a lot of him, it was more like his chest up, you know what I mean? And I think if he's got those, like, this boneless movement or whatever, like we got from Steppenwolf, that it's gonna not do it for me, but so we'll have to wait and see on that.
Dan, what was your take on did you like what you saw out of the look of Thanos?
I thought it was effective. I'm glad they went motion capture. I thought, like, it looked like, there was some weight to his, like, face. I guess I don't know, like, it didn't look too uncanny valley. Like, there was personality there. It didn't look too CGI. It was a good in between. Size. Like, he seemed intimidating. There was obviously that punch of Iron Man that I thought was done well. So, and I thought Brolin's voice, like, I was leery of the casting at first, but I thought his voice actually worked really well. I don't know if they've digitized it at all or anyway, but I liked what he was bringing to the character.
Yeah, I agree. I think the sound worked well. I think I'm still somewhat on the fence, because every time you have a villain, you have some level of motion capture, CGI or whatever, which I guess is somewhat unavoidable, but it always is like, what's the finished product going to look like? And sometimes it can even change from the time we see a trailer to, the actual finished product. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But I liked what I saw so far. Now, obviously the other question that people are going to be speculating, they already have been for a while now, the one thing that people have kind of held against Marvel is the whole nobody ever dies, everybody always is, invulnerable and indestructible type thing, or even if they are hurt, they're going to come back and this, that, and the other. That ends here, right? I mean, we will see one or multiple characters die, right, Dan, in this?
I don't know. I don't know if we will. Like I said, I feel like Thor Avengers 4 is supposed to be the finale of it all. So I could see maybe one or two characters dying, but I think it will like. I don't know what the plan is for Avengers 4. It's supposed to tie in this and not, because it's supposed to be part 1 and part 2. I don't know if that's still the plan, but I don't think if people are going to get the massive amount of the deaths that they're looking for. I think there might be some, but I have a feeling that the deaths are probably going to happen in the next movie. Because but maybe not. I could be wrong. It could be like typically when we've had the movies that have been split like this. Not knowing that this one is going to be like the Harry Potters or something of that nature, it tends to end on the darkest moment. So maybe it will end like when all seems lost. But I don't know. I was thinking suspicion that minus like perhaps the Vision per se, just throwing that out there as a guess, that we won't see a lot of character deaths.
Amanda, do you think that the trailer was alluding to Vision being taken out? Obviously, one of the Infinity Stones that Thanos needs is in his head. So is he maybe high on the list of possible people that we're going to see an end to, or what do you think?
Oh, he's getting trashed at least for a little while. I mean, how does he stay alive then otherwise? I was thinking about that when you see that getting ripped from his forehead. I'm like, that essentially is like his soul, his what makes him tick, you know what I mean? That's his brain, his soul, everything. So I'm not really sure how he can survive without it.
Who would make you the most upset if they died in this film?
Thor.
Dan, who's the number one person you don't want them to kill?
Oh, don't want them to kill?
Yeah.
Man, jeez.
Not saying they'll kill anybody, but if there's one that you're like, which one would make you the most upset if you never got to see this guy play this character again, or girl?
Probably Cap. Chris Evans. Just because his films have been all so great, are also good. Or you know what? It would be rather disappointing if Black Panther dies, because we'd just be starting.
Right.
But mostly just because of my connections to the character, it would have to be Cap.
All right, so definitely a lot of people freaking out, a lot of people excited with this look at Infinity War, and a lot of questions, a lot of speculation. It's going to be a fun time hearing all that kind of go back and forth up until we get the release of this film. So you guys will have to let us know what you guys think of the trailer for Infinity War, and what your excitement level is for the future of Marvel and the future of DC. We've talked about both of them. Which one are you more excited for going into 2018, because there's definitely a lot of different things to look at when it comes to the world of the comic book films, TVs, etc. So you have to let us know by going to the website geekcastradio.com, commenting on the post there, or you can interact with us on Twitter. You can interact with the show at Cinema Geekcast, ask us questions, or just comment on what you think, what you like, etc. You can also interact with us individually if you want to seek any of us out on an individual basis. Amanda, how can people talk to you?
At HardCandiMandi, eyes, no lies.
Dan, what about you?
I'm at MovieRevolt.
And I am at Optimus Solo. And that's it for this week. And we'll be back with some more talk on Kevin Smith coming forward. We'll have some more video game film talk, and maybe even another new movie review coming down the pike with a little film called Star Wars coming out. We might get a chance to talk about that. So a lot of stuff to look forward to as we wrap up 2017. So stay tuned next week for another chance to listen to the Cinema Geeks.